If you're watching there, thanks for joining us. If you're watching the recording on YouTube, glad you're with us. Today, my producer, Alex, say hi.
What is up? Hope everyone's having a great Monday.
Yeah, post 4th of July holiday, post Canada Day, we're into the following week. Now it's back to the grind of things. Alex, you have a couple news articles for us today to tap into.
Yeah, no, we have a couple different categories we want to go over. I'm going to start with Ryan Garcia, the boxer, who's been in the news lately for a lot of not so good things. Clearly going through some mental health issues, causes, addiction, drinking, drug use, probably most likely. And kind of been in this downward spiral, and it led to a post where he said he's going to be checking into rehab, skipped the rehab, went to his brother's fight, got kicked out of his brother's fight, and just a lot of people are reaching out, to try to help him. Some former, famous boxers just that have gone through something similar early on in the career, young kid, 25-year-old, and just really public in this kind of downward spiral of his career, which is sad and unfortunate. But I thought it'd be interesting for us to kind of start with that. A couple other, WNBA players.
Yeah,
and
tap
then
into that. All right. Well, let's touch bases on this Ryan Garcia. So a little bit of background. I'm not a huge boxing fan, but I know a little bit. But as I researched, as you brought this up, Ryan Garcia, a little bit of context here. He and Devin Haney fought earlier this year in April. They both had not fought each other professionally. So this was the first professional fight. They had gone at each other 6 times amateur with a record of 3-3. And at the fight, there was also some, kind of side bets between the two. Come to the event, Garcia ends up winning by decision. But then afterwards, kind of things started to hit the fan. Garcia ended up testing positive for a performance-enhancing drug, both his A and his B. He was tested the day before the fight, the day of the fight. He came back and said, no, it wasn't legit. It was a tainted, whatever it may be. So that's been going on the last 2.5 months. And then the latest, which you brought up, is he got into a X sphere, right? Not Twitter, X sphere, in social media, kind of brick bat, going back and forth, and a lot of, whether it was pro certain candidates, was making racist comments, was doing a lot of things, and then backtracking all of it to the point of it's like, I'm going to rehab. And kind of one of the, I think the things that you shared with me is like going to rehab. So excited. It's like gonna crush this. Right. And you can just tell it's like, all right, dude, like what's really going on? Yeah. So that's where it kind of enter us into this. If you are a boxing fan, if you're, a fan of the pay-per-view, maybe a bit more, but that's just me from the cursory from, kind of trying to bring everyone in. Here's the big thing that you mentioned in our kind of pre-talk about this is dude's crying out for help. He's crying out for help in a big way. And is he crying out for help in ways that he's actually going to get it?
Yeah. I mean, you just look, it's so public. You see all the Instagram, all the videos of him in these public areas and spaces. He did a poker tournament. He goes to these fights. He saw his brother fight. And you just see, what's happening. And it is this very loud, boisterous, egotistical. And you could tell it's from this area of like, I need a lot of help, the massive amounts of drinking and drug use. And it does come from that place. And who's in his camp supporting him? It's like, who's supporting that behavior, and who's going, dude, we need to sit you down. We need to go to rehab. We need to really tackle this before things get even worse.
There, I don't know how familiar you are with Warrick Dunn. Warrick Dunn, the former running back, played for the Atlanta Falcons. I believe he also played a couple years for the Buccaneers. I may be wrong there. But was a graduate of Florida State University. His mom was a police officer, died while he was in high school. He ended up raising his siblings, taking them with him to Tallahassee at Florida State, raising them. And one of his foundations now is going back and building homes. I think he's built like 180 plus homes for single moms. But one of the things that Warwick Dunn does is Warwick Dunn is a former NFL player. He goes and he speaks to all the rookies at Rookie Symposium. And one of the things he talks about is letting fame and money get you sideways. There's actually, he quotes this. I've seen it quoted. I'm familiar with it, a proverb. And it's a proverb said that if you want to test somebody's mettle, if you want to absolutely put pressure on people, give them fame and money. And that will ruin them. And so I use that as a context of coming in here to Ryan Garcia. And the question really is who is in King Ryan's camp?
Yeah.
Who is in his camp advising him? And I want to bring that around to kind of the central the topics. A lot of topics we talk about in general here is, who are you being mentored by?
Yeah.
Who are the classic, who are the 5 people around you? Who are you looking for advice and mentorship? And I think as you bring up, one of the things that is really kind of quite visible here is he's yearning for someone to lead him and guide him and not take advantage of him and not try to, use him for their gain, whether it's by status or by fame and money. And it's really sad to see someone who is spiraling and yet they're completely lacking mentorship. We see it in other professional sports as well. We see, a lot of celebrities in general that struggle with all the pieces of whether it's the performance, whether it is the accolades, whether it is the spotlight. And, when all these things add up, as you kind of have mentioned, it is sad to see it affecting people.
Tyler, for those watching, that you brought up something interesting, being aware and seeing those around you, who's helping you. For those watching and listening, what are maybe 4, 5, 6 things that if you are struggling right now, whether it is an addiction, whether it is performance, mental health, just feeling that you are drowning and not growing and succeeding, what are some of the things that you can do and to be aware of it, right? Who's surrounding you? What are they doing? Is your life positive? Is it in a negative space? Can you kind of take us through what we should be looking for?
I mean, the first one, if you're watching and that's you, send me a message. Send me a message because I care. Send me and quite bluntly, it's that way. And I say that earnestly because I have a mentor and a friend who is exactly that way too. He's modeled that. He's modeled a mutual friend of ours, my mentor's friend, my mentor's mentee, was a very public figure, and ended up committing adultery. And he was a pastor, and he shares it. And his name is Jeremy Foster. Go on Instagram, go check out Jeremy. I'll share it. And Jeremy, like, his life crumbled. Led a massive church in Texas. Now, you don't have to be a person of faith to understand that's a high leadership pedestal. And it all became public. And he had to sit in front of his church and admit it. You know who the first person who called him and said, "Hey, I love you. I care about you. Come to my birthday party." Was John Maxwell. And he said, it doesn't matter. Like, we all make mistakes. I'm not going to pile dirt on top of you. That's stupid. That's digging my own grave. Mm-hmm. So if you're someone who is, you're yearning, you're searching, you're seeking, reach out to me. If you're watching this, if you're, find this on LinkedIn or YouTube, just reach out to me. I'd love to be that person to, sit there with you and walk with you and put my arm around you because you need it. And too often we find that people are either concerned to do that because how it's going to look on them, or 2, they're not strong enough themselves. And one thing that I've learned through, if you want to be stronger yourself, help someone else. because it's going to force you to deal with your own demons and issues and struggles and be stronger, period. And so I think when we talk about this, if you're struggling and you're trying to find your way, it's find that. I also believe that, understanding a bigger belief. I'm a person of Christian faith. That is my foundation. That is my belief system. I have my reasons for that. But I also know that you need to believe in something. And if you're not believing that you have a purpose, you're here for a reason, I think it can often spiral and you start chasing all the things that aren't going to make you feel better. Right? Deion Sanders, you and I sat and listened to him earlier this spring, and he shared some of his journeys. And, as a professional athlete, as a two-sport athlete, as one of the most popular athletes at his time.
Yeah.
And how much he struggled with the fame, the clamoring for attention. And what did he do? He went and found people that cared about him as a person and not what he could do for them, what money he could give them, what fame he could bring them. And I think that's where there are people that are willing to be there because you're you, and not because of what you can give or get them. And find those people. Find those people to be around you because they will lead you and change your life. So I think that's 3. Is there?
Yeah, no, I think that's, you touched on a lot of interesting things there. So you would imagine, a fighter like this guy, Ryan Garcia, famous, has money, must be surrounding himself with a lot of negative people that are influencing him in negative ways. Opposed to, and if you are, something happening in your life similarly, is that how do you remove those people and get in the camp of the ones that are not wanting to bury you in the dirt, like you said, but lift you up?
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard because the entire fashion of, let's think about this. Ryan Garcia, just getting into his professional career, has been an amateur boxer, has been successful. I think his pre-fight record, according to Wikipedia here, stands at 24-1, 20 knockouts. And this is dated, but relatively, right?
Yeah.
The pressure to stay at that level, man, that's overwhelming. It's overwhelming for a young guy. It's overwhelming in a camp that is looking for those pressures and accolades as well, right? They want to be like, man, I'm in his camp. I trained him. Look at me, the status of it. And when you think about that, it's so hard to be clear of mind and understanding what's really important in life. Mm-hmm. And again, we see so many athletes go through it. And their identity is whatever they're doing. And they can't comprehend that, oh man, if I were to lose a fight, what would that do for me then? You think about it. And again, it's so hard in a sport that there's such a small margin of error. Meaning if I were to lose a fight, I'd be completely out. But you think about this, the athletes who said, I'll go fight anyone, anyhow, anywhere. And knowing that's the only way that they're going to get better, as opposed to the person that is like, man, I have to be so out there, bold and boisterous. I have to look at using, performance enhancing products in order that I can keep the status that I've gained because maybe I'm injured. We've heard about players, read about people that come back from that, right? Oh, it's an injury. I'm just trying to get back. I want to get back to where I'm at, where I was. And the fear of failure, the fear of the insecurity of, what if people really find out of what I'm really like? Right? It's a challenge for any of us anywhere. And to put it on, someone who's 25, 26 years old,
young kid,
it's a challenge.
And, kind of the juxtaposition, the opposite, Caitlin Clark, WNBA superstar, is getting a lot of heat from fellow, athletes in the WNBA, but seems to just have her head up high, just broke historic numbers the other night, and is seeming to almost be the opposite. She's kind of rising above all of that so she must have I'm assuming she has a very strong camp that is highly supportive of her through her.
Yeah. I mean, as a 22-year-old who is the face, whether you agree with it or not, she is the face of the WNBA. The WNBA has set attendance records this season. Her games, the games that Caitlin Clark plays in, is almost twofold the attendance of all the other games. Mm-hmm. If people within the NBA can't stop and recognize that she is your sport, and it's you better protect her. And I think the challenge here is, you mentioned, she's handled it so well. She has an amazing group of people around her. She has been absolutely, from a parents, from a coaching, from a everything. It's like, just do the work, right? The humility she has is impressive, to not get sucked in, because there's so many of these frustrations you can see she's getting sucked into. But this is the other part that I think that's so interesting. We were talking about this, and I wanted to share a story and saving it for now. I heard this many years ago, and it's they actually did a research study, a psychological study, and these researchers, they took and they put 4 monkeys into a room. Okay, they put 4 monkeys into a room. There's a pole in the center of the room. At the top of the pole, there's some bananas. Okay, researchers are watching it. And, eventually the monkeys start climbing the pole to grab one of the bananas. Each time they go to grab a banana, they get shot with water. And eventually what happens is, the researchers are watching, they're engaging. They make sure that every single monkey gets shot with water. After every monkey is shot with water, they take one of the monkeys out. They replace it with a new one. So now there's 3 monkeys that have been shot with water, 1 that has not. That new monkey goes and climbs the pole. It doesn't get shot with water. The other 3 monkeys pull it down. Eventually, they replace all of the monkeys that have been shot with water with all new monkeys, and no one ever climbs the pole. What does this tell you? This is an example of what's going on in our society, what's going on in the WNBA. You have a lot of people that are pulling down at Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark has a talent level to a different point, right? We saw that in, collegiate basketball. She could do things that people couldn't do. She was setting attendance records for women's basketball. The women's college basketball final outranked all the other basketball games in the last years. Professional, it didn't matter. She was that big of a draw because what she's doing is transcendent. It's different. Yeah. She's changing the sport because of her ability and what she does as a team player, but also individual, right? She just had a triple-double. If you aren't familiar with the triple-double, that means it's double-digit points, rebounds, and assists. Well, if you have double-digit assists, that means other people are scoring. You're a good teammate, right? And so you see this happening where the rest of the league, you could also relate this to how do you go crab fishing, right? You go for crabbing. And, they always say is like, well, you can't catch just one because it'll climb out of the pot. So you got to have 2, because if you put 2 in the pot, the other one will keep pulling each other down. And that's what I see going on in the WNBA. The rest of the WNBA players continue to pull her down rather than saying, man, thank you. Right? You see it all the time, this competitiveness. And here's what's interesting. And I want you to just stop and think about this. I've seen this in my business career, predominantly in network marketing. I've also seen it in other industries. And I don't see it happening with men, but I see it all the time with women, is they pull each other down. I see men, we may not applaud each other, but we'll get competitive with each other. Sometimes you'll, slam people, but nothing like what I've seen from women. Again, I've seen it in business. And there's almost like, if someone else is doing something good, it's very hard to acknowledge it and support them and applaud them. And that's what I see going on in the WNBA. And going back to with Ryan, it's like, what circle does Ryan have around him that's supporting him, that's saying, hey, let's keep you down the right path to where you can have a great, successful career and not get sidetracked. And at the same point, Caitlin has that, right? We've seen her handle things, but what about everyone else? Because all they want to do is pull her down, pull her down, pull her down, and tear her apart. And it's just like, are you stupid? It's really that bold. Are you stupid that you don't understand what's going on? I would not. You would not. So many other prognosticators would not even be talking about the WNBA. The history stands for itself, right? Would not be without what's going on.
Well, Tyler, let me ask you this. If you are, a business leader, you're working your way up the ladder, you see maybe someone else, man or woman, regardless, and you see them, growing and rising throughout the organization, I'm guessing jealousy ensues.
Yeah.
And what should you be doing instead of, maybe just those feelings, right, become natural? Yeah. How do you train and pivot your mindset to not react that way, but what should you be doing so that you can then be that person up on the pedestal?
Well, I mean, quite honestly, I've had to deal with it. I've had to go through it myself. I've had to address the envy, the insecurity, the fears. That's what held me back for so much of my professional life. It made me, internally this angst where it was my value, what I could do. And I could just sit here and speculate that there's a lot of people that are maybe upset, frustrated with Caitlin because she can do things they can't do. Right. And so it spotlights their inadequacies rather than, recognizing, hey, she's great at what she is. How do I do what I'm great at? And I think coming back to what you said is it's really coming to grips, first and foremost, what are your fears and insecurities? And it's okay. How does that make you show up to others? You can sit here. Caitlin has them too, right? She's human. Not taking anything away from her, but she has them. Right. And we all do. And I had to recognize my fears and insecurities, how they showed up. But then I had to go through the process of changing my mindset and beliefs, changing my mindset and beliefs to say, hey, I can control those. I can control how I react to certain circumstances. I can accept when my fears and insecurities are getting the best of me. And I think when you talk about it, you're in a role where maybe someone else gets promoted. You're in a role where somebody else gets the business gig, the client, the sale, and you don't. Do you turn around and make that about them? Or you do use an opportunity to say, okay, what can I learn from this and how can I get better? What uniquely am I gifted at? Or situation, I've done this a couple times, of being able to say you missed the sale, right? And somebody else gets the sale, a competitor or whatever else. Just ask, hey, what could I have done better? What didn't I do? And one of the things that I found most notably is it was 100% timing. Meaning they happen to just be at the right time, the right spot. Well, all right, how can you manage timing? You can be more proactive. You can do more to follow up, engage, connect with people. So that way you're front and center. And a lot of times that's all it is. How did we get connected? Timing. The right situation where, one of my circle had met you, had known you, and said, you know what? I think this is the person that you need to help. All right. That's it. Was there any competition? Not really. It was timing. And it was like, okay, that's how those relationships work.
It's interesting. So just kind of going back to Ryan and Caitlin, as they kind of grow and they're both young in their mid early 20s, and go through this they're fighting different battles in different situations. It sounds like if you're going through something similar, the first thing that you need to strengthen is your fears and your insecurities. And that at least will lead you to the next step, which is what?
Well, I mean, that once you find that, then you can own how you show up to people.
Okay.
And once you own that, then you can start to see the connection. Oh, when I have these fears and insecurities, it creates this action out of me because beliefs and thoughts bring actions. And then, we can change that by changing our beliefs and actions, right? And so it's kind of this loop that goes in a cycle. And it's like, if we understand how our fears and insecurities make us feel and move, act, and we can see how that results and shows up in people, then if we change those fears in those, our thoughts that we have about those, then we can change our actions, which lead to our results. That's the process.
And, I know this is an interesting pivot, but, we were talking about this too a little before we went live, but about the current status and the struggles with jobs, right?
Yeah.
And if we've both have friends that you see job posting on LinkedIn or wherever, Glassdoor, wherever they have job postings, and either you get rejected, you apply, get rejected, apply, maybe you get through the door. I had a friend get through the door because they knew somebody internally, got on a call. It comes to that job. Now, this job posting was out for about 2 or 3 days. It was a very high level, high profile job. And, because they were friendly with them, they're like, listen, I don't want to waste your time, but we're already like at the end, final 2 for choosing this role. And they're just going, how is that possible? You just posted the job 2 or 3 days ago. How are you in the final stages? They're like, well, everyone's got community and network, and we kind of already knew who we wanted to go with.
Yeah.
So it's just my point to all this is there just seems to be so much uphill battle, struggle, and fighting, and you're almost there, and there's all these things pushing against us to get to where we want to be. But whatever it is, there just seems to be this insurmountable force to push through and to get to, just to have success.
Here's the how I connect the dots there is who's around you. Who's around you. You talk about it. There was a network, there's a community. That's how you got connected. And it's unfortunate you and I both have read highlights of having friends that are going through that job search process and finding out there is overwhelming number of fake job listings. It's been identified. There's a couple of magazines that brought this up over the weekend. The number of fake job listings that companies are sharing to make it look like they're hiring to affect the internal morale of the organization. All right. We won't dig into that. But what I will say as far as the connections and who's around you. And here's where I want to tie it into Ryan. Here's where I'll tie it into Caitlin. Our opportunity, your opportunity, everyone's opportunity going forward is when there are people that are Gen Z, younger, millennial, whatever. Be graceful, guide them, help them. Understand as we talk about these job situations is build that network, make those connections. And part of leading, in my opinion, is having a vision, then it's connecting, and that's what ultimately leads to influence. That connecting goes through every single relationship. Obviously, we talked about Ryan and Caitlin and each one of their networks and what value those networks and those connections are bringing them. As we talk about the job situation, we talk about what's going to happen potentially here, the economy going forward. The best thing you can do is create a solid foundation for yourself. Just like we discern the 2 instances, one seeing a tremendous amount of pressure that's coming externally, the other one that's a tremendous amount of pressure that's seemingly internally, and Ryan and different to Caitlin, and how they're handling that. And it's like what foundation they have and what does community, what do connections feed into it? And as we look at the job postings, we look at those situations where it's just bunk. Right? Like that's jacked up. Okay, job posting 2 days ago. It's kind of like the Rooney Rule, right? The NFL Rooney Rule, where it requires you have to, interview so many people of a minority identification, and so often those people are never going to get the job. Everyone knows in the organization who's going to get it. It was the assistant coach. It was the heir apparent. And they're like, no, but we have to satisfy the Rooney Rule. And it's just like. It's situations where it's like DEI for DEI's sake does more harm than good. Like being, bringing diversity and equality and inclusion is a great thing, but not when it's done as a show. not when it's done as oh, look at us, we're doing all the right things. I'm like, you're doing the right things because you weren't doing what was right beforehand, right? It's just kind of like, is it really the case, or just call it what it is? Right. And I think that's where all of these conversations we've had so far today, lumping them together, and it's like, what are you doing it for and why? Are you doing it because you're trying to appeal and appease someone else, or are you doing it for all the right reasons of a bigger purpose? And again, coming back to the job situation, is it's messed up. Don't read into it too much, because that's kind of what we're going through right now, is people are trying to figure it out.
Yeah, Tyler, I love when we chat, because we can just tie it, and I do see it as like, we can talk about Ryan Garcia, who's been going through a lot of struggles, and I feel bad because you just see so much hate. You see the people posting about him, making memes, and the guy's clearly got a lot of issues and needs a lot of support. And then we can go into Caitlin, and we can go into jobs, because I really feel like this is all interconnected, because it has to do with the mind. It has to do with
100%
where we are at, and just all these feelings and emotions we go through as people, to want to be great, to want to provide for our families, and to be successful. And some of it we can use as teaching lessons, right? Learning lessons, from some of these individuals. And you can see that obviously what they're going through publicly, because a lot of it's private. No one really will know what I went through, or you went through, or others, because we're not public figures. But if we can see it through the view of someone else's lens, of that people are struggling, deeply with a lot of these different things, and how it can affect us, at all sorts of different levels, with all sorts of different issues, whether it is just try to find a good job, or to be a great leader, or a great basketball player.
I think one piece, as we, get to a point of wrapping up here, is authentic vulnerability will always enhance connections. As much as we talk and we lead about Ryan and his admission of needing to go to rehab, whether it's a substance rehab, whether it's a mental health rehab, whether it's just finding people that will guide and support him, that vulnerability, whether it's contrived or true, needs to be applauded. It needs to be celebrated. And there will be people that absolutely beat on him, right? I can just imagine that's the society we live in, right? Everyone that wants to attack because of his racist comments, or his, whatever comments, instead of saying, hey, you know what? You're obviously crying out for help. You need help. How can I help you? How can I be a champion? How can I be a supporter? How can I be an encourager? At the same point, if we look at Caitlin Clark and understand she's going to continue to face challenges. She's going to face challenges that you and I don't understand. She's going to face challenges that, quite honestly, the rest of the WNBA does not understand. And the ability as spectators, as people of society, to encourage and support and be a champion for her, that's the great opportunity. And at the same point, as we have those people around us, maybe like your friend, that are going through the job search. And I've been there. Like I've had times, I think my friend, Jordan Montgomery, who is releasing a book in a couple of weeks called The Art of Encouragement. Right. And one of the things that he and I, when that podcast, we talked about podcast recording, released in a couple of weeks, is the people that are often need the most encouragement are the ones you think that don't. The ones that seemingly have it all together, you're like, man, look at them go. They're the ones that need encouragement. They're the ones that need support. And I think that's a reminder here for each of us, those of you listening and watching, Alex, myself, is there's someone in your life today that needs encouragement. Ryan needs encouragement. Caitlin needs encouragement. Alex, you need encouragement. I need encouragement. We all need encouragement. And the great opportunity is being able to do that, because what does that do? That helps affect how people address their fears and insecurities, what their mindset and their beliefs are. And if you can be a part of that circle, man, you can really make an impact.
And speaking of encouragement, John Maxwell, you are hosting an event with John coming up in just about 3 weeks?
3 weeks. We kick off 3 weeks, 21 days. Excited. The Impact Driven Leader Summit in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. John Maxwell, Graham Cochran, Jake Thompson, Katie Casada. They will be in in attendance to speak, share some amazing content. If you're watching, if you're listening, man, I would love for you to be there. We still have a few tickets available, so make sure you go check out tylerdickerhoff.com. You can click on Work With Me, and then there's a link there to the annual summit. Come, make sure that you're in the audience. I can guarantee, one, you're going to be encouraged, but two, you're also going to find a community that throughout the year will continue to encourage you, because that's how you make an impact.
100%. Yeah, that community. And if you're watching, listening, talk about community. Tyler, your community is amazing. And thank you for doing what you do, because you're the reason it exists.
Well, appreciate that. And it's because I needed the help. So, whether it was crying out for it, whether honestly or just recognizing it, what I needed to get better. So thank you for being here, Alex. Thank you for everyone watching and listening. Remember, you can watch back episodes on YouTube. Last week, we talked about Patagonia. That has had quite a few views. So go check it out if you want to learn about Patagonia, how, dealing with that in the workplace. But excited for this to post on YouTube as well. If you're watching live, thanks for being here. Till next time, choose to lead with impact. We'll see you each Wednesday whenever our podcast release as well.